And then the big one is this. The guys that you do get physical with, they ghost you. And here's what every guy is thinking in this position. So you went out on the date. Everything seemed to be going perfect. You both smiled. You both talked. You maintained eye contact. It felt really natural. When everything was said and done, it ended up the way that he probably wanted to, and maybe you did as well. But then the next day came, and you never heard from him again. Yep, you've been ghosted. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 things, and you need to stick around for all of it. The first part are the body language cues that got you to open up in the first place. The second part, I'm going to look at the psychological reasons that men do this, i.e. I want to show you what's happening inside their head, what they're thinking. And then the third part is, if you're sticking around long enough, I'm going to show you what's happening with the brain and the body, the chemicals that are happening that for some reason didn't end up in a bonding moment. There seemed to be a real connection. There was a real openness of speaking and sharing ideas. The big thing I want you to see is this. Look at the genuine smiles and the genuine eye contact. The bodies are open to each other. And the most important thing here is to make sure that there's a connection with the eyes. When you can look deeply into someone's eyes for 3 or 4 seconds or longer, it generally means that there's some sort of connection happening, but not always. Next, we see there's a mutual touching of items at the same time. Look at their hands. See how they're touching and holding? This is another generally accepted idea that there's some sort of bonding going on, because not only are you keeping eye contact, but you're making physical contact. Look back at this picture. They're leaned in towards each other. They are mirroring each other. So this is yet another body language cue that should signal connection. But are we sure? Now, when we want people to look at us, we generally tend to make sure that we appear our best. With women, it's very common for them to touch their hair to draw attention to themselves. And in some cases, look here. See how she's exposed her neck? This is generally a sign of trust with somebody. You must feel comfortable around them, like you want them to get closer to you. So all the body language cues were there. All the signs were there. So what happened? First of all, the thought process in men and women are completely different. Now, most men have this belief, true or not, that all women want relationships, which is very similar to the complementary belief that all men want to get physical, which is not necessarily always true, but it's generally pretty true.
Oh, really?
Now, because of the scarcity principle, and I'll get into that in another video, men are always looking for an opportunity, and they only regret when they miss an opportunity. The flawed thinking in men is that every woman wants to have a relationship with every man that she gets physical with, and that she will only get physical with people that are in a relationship, or if she thinks it's leading to a relationship. This is where you'll get people that will be faking the body language that I told you earlier. Guys will go through all kinds of song and dance to make you feel as though there's going to be a relationship, because that's what we believe generally that women want, and that's the only way to get to that next level. And then there's the idea that there must be some sort of exchange. If I give her what she's looking for, she's going to reciprocate with what I'm looking for. And then the big one is this. The guys that you do get physical with, they ghost you. And here's what every guy is thinking in this position. They're scared to death that you will try to tie them down forever in a relationship if they ever see you again. Now, whether that's true or not, that is the reason that men ghost women. Understand how men look at this. I want you to think about if you've ever seen a movie where someone robs a bank. Now, the bank robber may walk in and not do anything or look different than anyone else. Sometimes they'll wear a disguise, but usually they will look and say and react and do things that give the teller the confidence that everything is normal. Then when they execute the robbery, the teller reaches into the drawer, gets out the money, the robber takes the money and leaves the bank. In other words, they just pulled off a heist. They pretended to be something that they weren't, and they told the teller what they wanted to hear to get the payday. And when they got it, they left. Do you think the robber ever calls the teller back and says, hey, I felt a connection. Maybe we should have dinner? Of course not. Do you think that the robber ever came back to the bank and said, hey, I need to hang around here. Maybe I'll run into these people again because I really felt a connection? No, because he's scared to death that if anyone sees him and recognizes him, they are going to put him in prison for 20 years for robbing the bank. Just like men believe that if you ever see them again after physical activity like this, they may get thrown into a different kind of prison. It's called child support for 18 to 20 years. This is a reason for ghosting. And if you're still here, now I'm going to tell you what's going on between the brain and the body in the chemistry section of what is happening that confuses everybody. Intimate physical activity releases dopamine. In men, this slams the dopamine receptors and it's a rush. It's the excitement. It's the payoff. But in women, something additional happens that does not happen in men. Women will release oxytocin as well as dopamine. And as you probably know, oxytocin is the bonding chemical. This is the one that causes pair bonding. It's not released in men during this activity or after this activity, but it is in women. As a matter of fact, look at this. Yes, I always try to show you research so you know that I'm not making this stuff up. The results showed that the oxytocin plasma levels were significantly higher in women than in men. And look at how much higher. The levels are 4.53 in women versus 1.53 in men. Look at this, 4.53 in women and 1.53 in men. What does this mean? 1.53 is a standard normal baseline for most people. But with women during physical activity, they release 3 times as much of the bonding hormone than men do. What's the conclusion of the study I'm showing you? Oxytocin does not facilitate sexual behavior in men. So when women allow this to happen, they feel like there's a bond, or there needs to be a bond, or they desire a bond. Men do not desire a bond afterwards. And thus the problem begins, as I told you earlier, men don't feel bonded. There's no extra caring or any emotion attached to it. So what's the fear? The one I told you earlier. That if they ever see you again, you're going to want to tie them down into a permanent relationship that they don't want. So they avoid you because they're scared if you ever see them again, that's what's going to happen. So the funny thing is, after all the research, the science, the biology, the physiology, they all show that men and women are indeed completely different. Who knew?